We're talking about when 4 or 5 years ago, if we were talking about prepping, getting ready for bad times, most people go, yeah, okay, I can see the fundamentals of our economy were bad 4 or 5 years ago. And I know for 4, 5, 6, 10 or 20 years ago, I was saying, watch out, we're going to get an inflationary spiral one day. And inflation will just keep going up, and who knows where it'll end. Hopefully it ends at the 17.1% we're actually at. 8.25 or whatever they're saying we're at is not true. We're at over 17%, which is the highest. The 8.25 is the record, or 8.5 or whatever it is the highest ever recorded using this way of recording it. And when the inflation of the late 70s and early 80s hit its peak using the other way of recording it, it had never went up to 17.1. So we're at a very high inflation rate for the United States. And the answer we're hearing out of Washington is often, we need to spend more money to get out of this.
Does that make sense?
That is insane.
It's Putin's fault, you know.
It is Putin's fault.
Everything in the world is Putin's fault.
Yeah, it's all Putin's fault. Yeah. Yep. Everything. There you go. If you feel sick tomorrow, blame Putin.
Or Trump.
If you catch COVID, Putin did it. You know. But the truth is, the fundamentals of our economy have always screamed we're going to go into severe problems. If they correct it the way they had to do in the early 80s, we'll go into a recession. If there's all kinds of issues economically. So what do you do in that situation, biblically speaking? A lot of Christians will say, well, just have faith, Paul. But the Bible actually has some other ideas. And among them is just to do your best to get ready. I do have faith, and I have to have faith. The more prepared I am, the more I realize we better have faith. Because the more I get ready, the more I realize I'm lacking a lot. There is no way to get as ready as we possibly could. If tomorrow I opened up my computer and checked my checkbook or my checking account balance, and there was suddenly $3 trillion in that account, and I was just spending money wildly getting ready, we'd still have forgotten something. There'd still be a variable you have no control over. For instance, what if Putin makes good on his threat with his nuclear weapons? All of a sudden we're in a nuclear war. How are you going to spend your way out of that one? I don't care how much money you have. You'd be lucky. We'll talk about, after we close with the Bible study, we might talk a little bit about nuclear preparedness, because that's been in the news a little bit lately. But still, with Russian missiles and stuff that aren't super accurate, you could be, okay, I'm 100 miles away from the nearest target area, and one goes off course and hits you right on top of your little bunker, and there you go. You're done. You just don't know. But we can prepare as well as we can, and then to rely on God for the rest of it. 1 Timothy 5:8. Just a couple of you read that. Mom, can you get Proverbs 22:3? And Dad, get Proverbs 27:12. And, we'll just go there. We'll stop there. Timothy, will you do 1 Timothy 5:8?
5:8.
Yeah, sorry.
First Timothy 5:8.
Yep.
But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith, and is worse than an infidel.
Who's your own in that case? Your family, especially your family, is what it's saying. We should do the best we can to take care of each other. If one of our members' house burned down tomorrow, they should certainly have a place to spend by the end of that day, because we should have been taking care of them, not relying on government or somebody else or some insurance or whatever, at least until those other things can take over. What about Proverbs 22:3?
A prudent man foresees evil and hides himself, but the simple pass on and are punished.
All right, Proverbs 27:12.
27. Danger and take revenge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty.
All right. You know, in most versions, they were reading two different versions, so it sounded different.
Right.
But they're identical verses. Proverbs mentions it twice. Why? When the Bible mentions something more than once, especially in fairly rapid succession, it's an important thing to remember, right? When Jesus said, what does the word verily mean as it's translated in the King James Version? Truly. So when Jesus said truly, that's important. But if he said what? Truly, truly, this is really, really important, folks. Listen up. It's a vital thing. All right. So, does anyone see the danger today? What's the danger today? Okay. That is one big danger. And I'm recording this, so you know. Yes. Everything. It really is. It's crazy, isn't it?
Especially if you have a family.
The lack of truth, the inability to get truth sometimes, and that's on more of a just overall level. But we've got all kinds of problems right now, don't we? It's almost like Jesus knew what he was talking about when he talked about the beginning of sorrows. We're right there. We're right on the cusp. As a matter of fact, if you think of it in terms of the judgments God is going to release on the earth during the tribulation, the world is being set up for the first few of those as we speak. Now, does that mean the rapture is going to be tomorrow and the tribulation starts next Tuesday? It is. Mark my words and buy my book. No, I'm just kidding. Don't buy my book. I wouldn't have. It is. It doesn't mean we don't know when it's all going to kick off, but boy, it's sitting right there on the edge, right?
It's like the Tower of Babel and like the flood.
Yeah. And Jesus talked about the fig tree, right? It was actually one of the last things he was saying to his disciples, and he's talking about in Matthew 24, I think is one of the places where it mentions the fig tree. And what he's saying about the fig tree is, look at the fig tree. When its leaves are getting green, and you see the fruit coming on, you know that the harvest is, that the harvest or the summer is coming. And what does all that mean? Why would he say? I mean, what does a fig tree have to do with anything? What he's saying is, just like I was out here, I have blackberry plants, so I would do the parable of the blackberry trees, right? The blackberry plant. And I see flowers budding, and then the petals drop off, and what am I expecting in the next few weeks? Fruit. I'm expecting a blackberry, a couple pieces of blackberry. Unfortunately, I don't have enough to make a cobbler or anything good out of it this year, because I only have one plant. But I know the fruit is coming, because all the signs are there. And that's what Jesus was talking about with the fig tree. When you see all the signs of the fig tree about to bear its fruit, you know it's coming. You don't have to know the day the figs arrive on the tree. You just know they're coming really soon. We don't know the time Jesus is going to call us home in the rapture. We don't know the day the Antichrist is going to sign the treaty with Israel. We have no idea when those things are going to be exactly. But we look at all the signs, and they're there. They're spot on. Let's go. Somebody give me 2 Thessalonians 3:10. And then somebody else do Proverbs 6:6-8. Katie, I'll have you do that one.
What was it? Sorry.
Proverbs 6:6-8.
2 Thessalonians.
I saw your yawn, and I knew you needed to read. 2 Thessalonians 3:10. All right, go ahead. 2 Thessalonians.
For even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if you would not work, neither should he eat.
You know, aren't you glad the Holy Spirit told Paul to put that in a letter? Because if he had just verbally said it to that church, the church at Thessalonica, we might not have known that rule, but it is a rule. Don't work, you don't eat. There's been times in my life where I've been disabled enough that the government said, okay, we'll take care of you. We'll send me a disability pay. But I never stopped working. I couldn't do it because the Bible says work if you want to eat. And that's why I call Don over here sometimes to have him help me out, you know. I'm just kidding. He works pretty hard around the house. But you don't just sit around and say God will provide. You work for your food. And the same applies to when you see trouble coming. Jesus said it would come, and the Bible says if you're wise, you're going to prepare for the trouble coming. So, all right, Proverbs 6:6-8.
Note to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer or ruler, provideth her need in the summer, and gathereth her food in the harvest.
Interestingly enough, here's how it's interpreted in today's modern version. Go to the ant, you sluggard, who doesn't have YouTube videos to tell her how to do it, yet she provides her food, right? No, okay, it wouldn't be exactly that way. But the truth is, I think there's an innate thing about humans that we see trouble and we go, okay, maybe we better set something aside. The truth is, humans have lost much of that. If it was 100 years ago, we would have most people going, I set aside every harvest. When I was a kid, I don't know about everyone, but when I was a kid, we'd have a garden, a huge garden. I think we had about a half an acre or more, right? And I remember we had huge rows of potatoes, and we'd pile up the potato. We'd fill one of these trailers that goes on a garden tractor, you know, full a couple times with potatoes. And we would eat those all winter long, and Mom would can green beans and can this and that, and even beets. Ugh. But I wasn't a big fan of beets. And sometimes make sauerkraut and all kinds of stuff. Why? Because you might need to eat it this winter. But today, people are so accustomed to not being that way. But even when they see trouble coming, it innately strikes them we better prepare. Unfortunately, they do strange preparations. When COVID started being announced, what was the big preparation?
Toilet paper.
Toilet paper! Wow, that's delicious. No, I mean, it's useless. And I mean, I get it. I want to have some too. But humanity survived for millennia without that. Humanity's never survived without food. There was still food on the shelves, but very little. You couldn't find toilet paper to save your life, you know. But anyway. Let's go. Let's go to Luke 22:35 and 36. I'm going to cut out some of these and we'll get to them later. For right now, I'm going to skip to this one.
22 what?
35 and 36. Now, this is interesting because a lot of people quote something Jesus said. And by something, I don't mean just one particular thing, but they'll quote Jesus. And they'll seem to miss his entire teaching on the issue. For instance, I read a book when I was young. I've read this book several times. A great book. I loved it. God's Smuggler by Brother Andrew. God's Smuggler was a very interesting book. But early on in the book is the part that most people forget about and don't notice and don't talk about. Brother Andrew was a man from Holland. He didn't speak English, and he went to Bible college in England at an English-only college, and he didn't even know how to speak the language. And it's kind of a fun story on how he learned to speak the language and learned to do a lot of things, and God worked with him. And one of the things they would do there is say, all right, they would send their people out, kind of like Jesus did, and say, go out to the surrounding the surrounding villages and the cities nearby, and preach, and don't take up collections, don't do anything, and let God provide for you. And they would do that, and he told the story of his time when he did it, and he said it was just miraculous how God would provide. But that was a training tool Jesus used, and it was a training tool that Bible college used too. When it came time to actually get to the field later in life, he didn't just show up in different countries that he was going to with no provisions whatsoever and pray the Lord supplied. He would show up, and God with his provision already taken care of ahead of time. And so what's going on in Luke 22, 35 and 36? He said unto them, when I sent you out without purse, scrip, or shoes, lacked ye anything? And they said, nothing. Then said he unto them, but now he that hath a purse, let him take it. Likewise his scrip. And he that hath no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one. What was he saying? He's saying, I sent you out this way to learn faith. But now when you go out, I want you to go prepared to go. I don't want you to just say, I'm just going to show up with no provision. There's a time and a place for that kind of faith, but Jesus said, the way you're going to do it from now on is you're going to go ahead and provide before you go. You're going to have everything ready. You're going to bring the money. You're going to bring a means as a defense, the sword. And the same thing applies to us today. If Jesus' disciples went out and following Jesus' new instruction of bringing your stuff with them, and say along the way everything they had was stolen, how panicked do you think those disciples would be? I suspect a lot less than most of us, because they had seen the miracle earlier. They knew, in spite of the fact that they had all their stuff ripped off, God was there and he will provide. The lesson learned early still applies later, even though God or Jesus changed. And I can say God or Jesus interchangeably because he is God, but the lesson changed to a different direction and how to handle things differently. But the faith they built early was still there. God provides us with times where we have to operate by faith to build faith. But that doesn't mean we spend our whole life sitting around going, well, God's going to provide, and never doing anything about it. And the same applies to right now, this time period. You see the darkness encroaching. You see all the problems. We should be doing the things we need to do spiritually. Pray, read the Bible, witness, give, all those things. But we should also be looking at the darkness, the bad things we see coming, and saying, okay, let's get ready for some of these things. Let's do the best we can. But not in a faithless way. Not in a way that says, I'm doing this because I don't trust God. Because how many of you, as you've gotten maybe more and more prepared than you were, also realize the more you get prepared, the more you don't know about what things could happen. It's almost like you fill this, and all of a sudden the opening for what you need grows bigger than it was before, right? And that's okay. Just have faith. God's going to provide the rest. He doesn't necessarily want us to do everything on our own. He just wants us to do something, and then he'll help fill in the gaps. Now, don't take that to mean I'm going to sit back and do nothing and spend all my money on Disney. Okay, really bad thing nowadays.
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about just, Lord, help me do the best I can, and whatever I can't, provide for me, and pray that prayer, and God will provide. That's what your faith is for. All right, let's go. One more verse, and I'm just going to read this for you. 1 Thessalonians 5 and 6. Ye are all children of the light, and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor darkness. Therefore let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. For people who say, sometimes people say, well, I just don't pay attention to what's going on around me. Jesus said, watch. He said, pay attention. And what does it mean to be sober? Hey, don't get drunk? Is that what it means? Well, that's part of it. What? Be aware. Be serious. That's the word I'm thinking of. My word just wasn't there. Be serious about it. You don't have to be panicky, and just take it seriously. Do the best you can, and let God handle what you can. And whatever you think you need, ask the Lord and watch His provision come in. You just don't know where it might come from. I think everyone's going to lose it once at least,
Because it's going to be scary. It's something we can talk about it, but we've never.
All you see going on around the world is, especially a money thing, like you just started in Canada, but it's the same thing's happening in China that Canada's doing, but China's doing it even bigger. You don't agree with our policy, money's gone. You don't agree. This is, governments all over the world are going to be doing this, and it has nothing to do with the money or the actual incident we're talking about. Goodness gracious. That little trucker thing in Ottawa? Really? You think that's an insurrection? Are you out of your mind? You have no idea what an insurrection is. Well, they're just they're gaining compliance, because the Antichrist is going to need compliance. And us, on the other hand, we should be gaining, we're not complying in our backbone, building it up.
That just